So, folks, November 17th, and we've got a number of stories to get into today, really a mountain of news. Of course, we have to talk about the overnight acts of terrorism in Poland. This will end up being Russia, as it always is. They've already lost an IKEA that was blown up. They lost a shopping mall. Russia's been trying to blow up commercial airliners all over Europe. They set fire to a bus terminal in Czech. They've been painting swastikas around French cities to sow anti-Semitism or the perception of anti-Semitism. They're now placing, 3 months ago, Russians were caught paying Moldovans to place pigs' heads outside of mosques to sow racial instability. This is going to end up being Russia, of course, but the Polish president is being fairly diplomatic right now. The Polish foreign minister is being fairly diplomatic right now, not accusing Russia, but it's 100% going to be Russia. These are the rail lines that ferry badly needed weapons to Ukraine, but they also ferry thousands and thousands of civilians all day long. And this could have been really, really, really bad. I'm going to cover this story in a minute, but first let me tell you the other things I've got coming up. We've got apocalyptic Russian oil industry news, just crazy. Nobody wants Russian Urals oil. It's now trading at a $23.52 discount to the price of Brent on the world market, around $36 a barrel. I mean, that's the last time it was here was during COVID, and previously it was 2016, and those were in stronger dollars. Anyway, I'm going to get into that story. We've got a number of Bloomberg stories regarding the Russian oil apocalypse that's currently unfolding. We've got more protests in Russia, and they're not protesting the war, of course. They are protesting the blistering pace at which their taxes are rising in order to pay for the war in Ukraine. But nobody's got a problem with the war yet. It's just about the taxes, right? Anyway, we've got one with subtitles so you can hear all the ridiculousness. We've got a bunch of other stories to cover, but let me start with the stuff in Poland, the film you've been watching. That is outside of Warsaw. I'll read what one of the early reports said, and I'll get into something more detailed. A serious incident occurred yesterday morning on the Polish rail line near Warsaw, the main artery connecting Rzeszów with the rest of the country. That's Rzeszów. That's the main. There was a big U.S. base there, and the Americans set up a lot of logistics there to ferry at the beginning of the war. A lot of logistics to ferry weapons into Ukraine. It's key, and the connections are, of course, key. A train traveling from Deblin to Warsaw was forced to stop after damaged tracks were discovered. No one was injured, and security services are now working at the site. And they also apparently set fire to some substations that control these lines, and it was at 3 separate locations. But here, this is one of the very first reports. As you can see, the whole piece of track here is just gone. And so when trains go over there, and then as you can see here, there's some wires. There was a detonation, and that was one of the wires. And then apparently there was a giant steel clamp attached to one other line, and it was supposed to derail a train. And I guess what happened was, in all of their Russian incompetence, of course, the train was too heavy and just cut the clamp. So I mean, I'm sure they're going to be trying again, and it's just. This is the EU daily reality now. Blowing up, this is a message from the Polish Prime Minister this morning. He actually went onto the scene. Blowing up the rail track on the Warsaw-Lublin route is an unprecedented act of sabotage, targeting directly the security of the Polish state and its civilians. This route is also crucially important for delivering aid to Ukraine. We will catch the perpetrators, whoever they are. They always get caught, and it's always Russian security service. Doesn't matter if they're trying to blow up cargo jets, or they're setting fire to buses in Czech Republic, or when they blew up the IKEA in Poland, or when they blew up the shopping mall in Poland, or when they're messing around with French rail logistics or similar in Spain, on and on. They're doing this all over Europe. And how you really know that it's a Russian operation is that it's always accompanied with a massive and a well-timed Russian disinformation operation. And this stuff was just blowing up all over Twitter this morning. All of these, Polish people, these are all accounts that were created, within the past couple years, and they are just basically trying to sow hatred between Ukraine. They're honestly trying to blame this on Ukraine, saying that Ukraine is doing all of this stuff. Even the Russian intelligence continuously is getting caught doing all these things. They're trying to say that it's Ukraine that's committing all these acts of sabotage and terrorism because they want to get Poland to somehow join in the war. Russia's disinformation operations aimed at the Polish electorate is now arguably the largest of its operations in Europe. Sowing division between Ukraine and Poland, aiming to convince Poles that Russian ops like train sabotage and blowing up shopping malls is actually Ukraine. This is the same old stuff they did with MH17 back on July 15th in 2014. They issue 7 different narratives, and then they hope that when the daytime talk shows come on, everyone's arguing all of those narratives, and maybe only one person suggests that it's Russia. So it seems like, well, we just don't know. We just don't know who it is. This is an old Russian technique, but here is the added caveat that it's really about sowing division between Ukraine. See, they win a number of times. When Russia commits these acts of terror, they never do it just for one particular reason. It's high. I'll just read you what this Russian troll farm said. It's high time to kick all Ukrainians out of Poland. This is responding to the Polish Prime Minister just talking about that we will catch the perpetrators and this and that. So they are there to take all that rage among the Poles, like who the heck's doing this, and aim it at somebody, and that's Ukrainians, because it's not that they want all the Ukrainians, that Russia really wants all those Ukrainians to go back to Ukraine, and because they probably end up fighting against the Russians. They just want to sow hatred, because if they can first get the hatred, then they can get them to cut off the weapon supplies to Ukraine, and then maybe they have a chance. The only paths that Russia has right now to a victory is really through either Brussels or Washington D.C. They need the civilized world to stop supporting Ukraine. They haven't received their money, and they're starting to threaten Poland. Today, they threaten us. Tomorrow, they'll threaten the entire West. Ukrainians must go back. I mean, they don't even teach these guys proper English there it's probably an African troll farm. I mean, it's Africa, Bangladesh, Vietnam. These farms are all over the world now. More nonsense, but that's how you know it's Russia. It's always accompanied with an information operation. And it wasn't just Poland that they attacked today. Of course, it was Ukraine, but they also struck a massive Turkish LNG carrier. And this thing, I guess, had like 4,000 tons of LNG on it, right on the border of Romania. They had to evacuate an entire Romanian city. Russia attacks Turkey, Ukraine, and Poland in one day, and also Denmark. I'm going to get into Denmark in a second. Putin really going for it now, while the free world continues to wish it away. And this is a post from our buddy Jurgen, who always has really awesome stuff. Odessa under constant attack by Russian drones. In Poland, terrorists have blown up a railway line. Like the Russians, a Turkish gas tanker was just set ablaze by a Russian drone. And this is the LNG carrier. This is on the Danube River, the mouth of the Danube River there on the border of Romania, in between Romania and Ukraine. And this just to show you that they really did. So you guys know I'm not making any of this stuff up. This is a Romanian village evacuated after a Russian drone attack in South Ukraine. And they are just going for it. Putin doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care. He's losing everything right now. I mean, when I get into this oil stuff, you're going to understand the predicament that this old gargoyle bastard is in. Filthy. Russians trying to take down Denmark's election system. Several parties' websites are down. Russian hacker group claims responsibility. Several parties' websites are down for a period of time on Monday morning. Denmark is amidst elections, and Russia is doing the thing that they do, and they've already taken credit for it on the X platform, saying that, yes, it was us, we are Russians, and we are attacking every element of the free world. Bloodbath in Russian oil market as Urals crude oil drops to trading at $23.52, discount to Brent. Last week hitting $36. $36 a barrel, you guys. And as you know, last week I did a video on that there's a whole region of Russia, the top oil producing region of Russia, coming out and saying that they need an emergency bailout. The country must start investing in new infrastructure and production because the cost of pulling a barrel out of the ground due to lack of investment for the past 20 years in infrastructure, the decaying old equipment, and the fact that the oil is getting harder and harder to get to, their production cost is going to double double, double, double. This is the Russians saying that by the year 2030. So 4 years from now. 4 years from now, okay? So this is where Putin is right now. He has to conquer as much territory and get all of this wrapped up as soon as possible. He is on a timeline. I'm sure he knows that. Russian oil plunges with top producers days away from sanctions. And this is Bloomberg. So you guys don't think I'm making up any of this stuff here. Discounts on Urals deepened to an average of $23.52 a barrel against the Brent benchmark at the end of last week, the widest since 2023. But back then, oil was over $100 a barrel. And so it wasn't that big of a deal. Now oil is trading at $36. The last time I checked, I can show you the chart right now. Here's the article, the Bloomberg article. So you know it's all legitimate here. I see in the comments, you can't prove that. Where'd you get that information? Where do you get? I don't know. I try to show you where I get stuff. The price of the nation's Urals grade plunged as low as 36.61 a barrel. And just to show you the last time that Urals oil traded at $36. As you can see, this chart hasn't updated yet, but I took the liberty to putting this little X here. Last time it was COVID. So to do what is happening to the Russian oil industry right now, the last time this happened it required a pandemic. And before that was back in 2016, and those were much stronger dollars. As you know, the money supply increased like 3 times coming out of COVID. This is earnings season for the Russian oil industry. We've got 4 companies that have already reported. I've reported them in past videos. But today, as you see, Gazpromneft, the 3rd largest oil company in Russia. Let me read you what I wrote first. Another earnings catastrophe for the Russian oil industry as the 3rd largest oil company in Russia posts another 65% drop in profit for Q3 2025, topping off 3 consecutive quarters of stunning losses. And this, you got to remember, this is before Ukraine began really hammering the pipelines, the refineries, everything, the transport, the ports. This is before all that happened, okay? Because this is 3rd quarter earnings, and they didn't really ramp up this stuff until October. Gazpromneft, as you can see, and look at the past quarters, you guys. I've been covering it since, the first one I covered was here. Because I started this channel 3.5 months ago. First one I covered was this 34% drop in Gazpromneft earnings. You can see the other companies are not doing any better. And as of yet, we've got Lukoil already has reported a 61% drop. We've got Tatneft already having reported last week a 30% drop. Urusneft is the 7th largest, down 45%. Gazpromneft 65% down. These are huge numbers, you guys. These are massive, massive, massive numbers. And I can't imagine what the 4th quarter is going to be like. It's January is going to be popcorn. Not going to be enough popcorn in Kyiv here to watch the Russian oil industry implode, and little bits of protests continue as the bill comes due to pay for all of this entertainment that the Russians have been watching on television, ballistic missiles flying into apartment buildings here in Kyiv, and just the general atrocities that the Russians craved and that the Tsar provided. All the mass murder in Ukraine not only entertained Russians, but gave them a sense of pride, deflecting from their own misery. But now the bill comes due. Protest in Novosibirsk against all the new taxes. Yes, they're not protesting the war. I'll turn this up so you can hear the Russians doing their thing. People, how much can they rob us? They're openly and brazenly robbing us all. And you, dear police officers, you notice that the police are there. You will never see a protest. They're waiting for any word they can use to drag everyone off to the clink, because this VAT tax is nothing more than outright robbery of the people. There is incremental value. And what is added value? That's what VAT tax means. It's a tax on a tax. Just think about it. This tax is charged on practically every item. We all pay for it. 20% For what? So that someone can live well and eat well? And nothing infuriates Russians more than someone living well. There's old jokes that are 400 years old about this. It's Americans like baseball, and then, every culture's got their thing. We already pay almost 70% of our salary in taxes, which is totally not true, but everyone is 13% taken out of their salary, plus 20% VAT tax. Do the math. Add up all these taxes on real estate, land taxes, and car taxes. Anyway, she continues with this. Add up all these taxes. We work and live to pay taxes. Is it fair? How did we live in the Soviet Union without these predatory taxes? By the way, this protest was organized by the head of the Communist Party in Novosibirsk, and he was taken to jail for doing that. I covered it 2 videos ago. Just for organizing it, and here's the protest itself. We had free, wonderful housing, talking about how awesome it was in the days of the good old USSR. Wonderful medicine, advanced science, even though the life expectancy for Russian men back then was like 55 years old. We are a leading country in almost all respects, ahead of the rest of the world. Without this robbery, people, enough is enough. They're just robbing us all blind. So the Russians are not happy about paying taxes. They are fine with the genocidal war in Ukraine that is being waged at their behest, really. I don't think just with they are 100% complicit in this war and cheering it on. And the support for this war is still pretty substantial. We are seeing more and more protests percolating all across Russia, pretty much in every city now. They've seen them with the youth now being arrested for singing songs such as Old Man in the Bunker and When the Tsar Dies and Swan Lake. And then these tax protests, there's been several of these: water taxes, VAT taxes, the car taxes now. It's like 300% when you want to import an automobile now. Putin has been so obsessed with this territorial expansion, with appearing to be this, Peter the Great or Catherine the Great, that he hasn't really paid attention to, the warnings of Tsar Nicholas that went down because of one of the big issues was his unaffordable wars. His war with Japan, for example, where guys came back with no arms and legs. They were sending unarmed Russians into Japanese artillery. It's all happening. All the same stuff. Exactly that is happening again. Let me just read you what I wrote this morning. Putin's problem is that he spent so much time trying to emulate the brutality and land grabs of Peter I and Catherine II that he forgot to heed the warnings of Nicholas II. This is the last photograph of Russia's last Tsar before they executed him, apparently weeks after this photo was taken. And this is probably a section of Russia maybe many of you haven't heard of. It's called Buryatia. But proportionally within the Russian army, the casualties in Ukraine, the vast majority of the casualties in Ukraine within the Russian army are from this region of Russia. It's an impoverished region, but really the richest region in terms of wealth in the ground. They've got diamonds, they've got everything you can imagine. It's all in Buryatia. They conquered this place a couple hundred years ago, and they began to systemically massacre the population. And even today, the resistance is still there. They're trying to make movies in their own language, and Russia comes in and smashes up the movie theater. All these things are still happening. You would think this sounds like it's out of some 1800s, like the Tsar goes mad, and the pogroms of Eastern Europe or something. This is all modern Russia I'm about to tell you about. The resource-rich Russian Republic of Buryatia has been incarcerated within Moscow's prison of nations for centuries, with the Kremlin fiercely punishing any notions of its own native culture. But resistance is growing. This is an article from Kyiv Insider. Despite centuries of trying, Russia still can't genocide Buryatia. And as you see, they were making a movie. This is, I believe, in the year 2010. They tried to make a movie in their own native language, and Putin absolutely flipped out. Russia has spent hundreds of years trying to erase Buryatia. First, let me show you where it is. So Buryatia is way out here. As you can see, Ukraine is out here, China here. This is the Mercator projection, so that Russia looks a lot bigger than it is here. Buryatia is this orange, and this body of water that it's on here is Lake Baikal, which is reportedly 20% of all of the world's unfrozen fresh water. And the Chinese would love to get their mitts on that. It's just massively resource rich. It's apparently one of the richest regions in terms of natural resources in Russia. But it is also, in true Russian style, it is the absolute, one of the absolute most impoverished regions, because all the resources are taken out. In the true Russian prison of nations business model, all the resources are pulled from the ground and sent to Moscow to buy golden chariots for the gargoyle midget czar there in his palace. This is what the Russian elite lives on. This has been the old model of Russia. This is what Russia is. It is prison of nations. And so the ethnicities of these places have to be crushed under Russian logic in order to keep the party rolling. It's because if they ever develop their own identity, they go, wait, hey, can't we keep these resources for ourselves? Like the Venezuelans will soon realize when Maduro's gone. This is just the natural trajectory of free people. Russia has spent hundreds of years trying to erase Buryatia through conquest, forced assimilation, destruction of religious institutions, targeted executions of its intellectual class, and more recently, the quiet suffocation of its cultural production. Yet despite this long, deliberate campaign of erasure, Buryatia persists, and nowhere is the struggle clearer than in the repeated attempts to suppress Buryat cinema. For the Buryat people, an indigenous Mongolic nation on the shores of Lake Baikal, film is one of the last remaining tools to preserve language, memory, and identity. That is precisely why the Russian state treats Buryat filmmaking as something dangerous. The suppression is rarely open or officially declared. It operates through pressure, intimidation, administrative blockages, and the quiet removal of films from public life, but the intent is unmistakable. The clearest example is Violin, a Buryat language film produced in the late 2000s. It was not political, not provocative, not a critique of Moscow. It simply told a story in the Buryat language, showing everyday life through the Buryat eyes. That alone was unacceptable to Moscow. As soon as the film reached the stage for public screenings, regional authorities in Buryatia blocked cinema showings using standard censorship formulas, in quotes, technical issues, missing certificates, administrative concerns. Cinemas that tried to screen it were quietly instructed to remove all listings. So, but you know where I'm getting, and they get into a number of other movies here where the same thing happened, but they were massacring people just, 60 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. This has been a long tradition of massacring, killing, suppressing the people of Buryatia so that Moscow can continue removing all the resources. And that is the plan for Ukraine. Moscow runs a prison of nation. It is the warden in the prison of nations. And any territorial expansion, any region of Ukraine that they've gotten into, the first thing they do is that they don't need people. They don't need anything other than the resources in the ground and an impoverished serf class to help them extract those resources. And that is the Russian model, guys. So when you hear some talking head or Western politician or just a guy, down at the pub or whatever, talking about, if these Ukrainians would just surrender. No, because you see the real killing doesn't start until the Ukrainians surrender. You see, that's when it happens. That's when it happens more, but it happens more quietly. That's when it's happening in basements. That's when it happens in, torture colonies. And that's the Russian model. And it's always been the Russian model. And I'm going to continue going through, we got many regions of Russia to dissect, and I'm going to try to go through a number of these on this channel. Maybe one a week I'll get into to try to just let the Western audiences sort of know that all this is happening and what Russia really is. Russia's not a country, it is a prison of nations. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for you today, and have a good one.